Hey everyone, Somber here. In this video I'm going to quickly show you the new nation that I added in my Warhammer mod for Dominions 5. It's up to version 2.4 and the nation I added is Norsca, who are a kind of um, Chaos meets the Vikings meets the Norse kind of faction in Warhammer. And I've made them a little differently from the way they've done them in Warhammer Total War and a little differently from how they're depicted in the lore, the background of Warhammer Fantasy roleplay and Warhammer Fantasy battles. So I'm just going to go through them quick. It's not going to be an in-depth preview, but I'll get to the nation overview right now. Like all the Warhammer nations, Norsca is in the Middle Ages. So we'll just go and find them on this list of nations. They are called Norsca Warriors of Chaos Undivided. Norsca is a cold and hard land known for its deadly warriors, mighty beasts, and worship of chaos. Unlike the realms of Slaanesh, Khorne, Nurgle, and Tzeentch, the people of Norsca worship the ruinous powers in their combined essential form, Chaos Undivided. So there I've kind of diverged a bit from the lore, and I've said that the Norscans don't worship the individual Chaos gods, which I believe they do in the lore, but they are kind of associated with all of them. Here I've just said they worship Chaos Undivided. So let's click through and we'll get our national overview. Right, I'm going to skip past the more detailed overview and just go to the national features. So you get hardened humans with partial cold resistance. That is cold resistance of 3. You have on basically everything. Beasts of Chaos. You do get quite a few cool Beasts of Chaos, and you prefer cold scales 2. Your military is made up of strong infantry with very few ranged weapons. You have some troops and commanders who can earn promotion, and I'll go through those in a moment. Your magic is water, nature, death, air, blood, and fire, so kind of a decent range of magical options. They're not very strongly in any one particular direction, but the strongest is water, I believe. Their priests are average, which means they can just get up to Holy 2. They don't have a Holy 3. They can perform blood sacrifice, and they certainly should be performing blood sacrifice because they have a unit that has adept sacrificeless. They sacrifice as if they were 1 holy level higher. Their dominion increases turmoil regardless of scale, so that's the same as Slaanesh, Khorne, Beastmen, Ogres, Greenskins. There's a bunch of nations in the Warhammer mod that increase your turmoil regardless. You'll always want to pick turmoil 3 when you're picking your scales at the start. Special mechanics. They have coastal sites that generate gold and blood slaves, and taking a second capital unlocks a new sacred troop. So both of these things are completely automatic. You don't need to do anything to engage with those, but when you take and control a second capital, you'll get a new type of sacred that you can have, which will be previewed down here, and you have these coastal sites that do some interesting stuff, you generating golden slaves. Your forts are standard, so let's, having looked at those, we'll just go through, I should go through the starting cap gem income too. So they start with 2 nature gems and 1 death gem, and in the Great Hall they've got 1 water and 1 fire. So you can plan on a decent nature income. 2 is an okay amount of nature to have in your capital, but you've got a variety of gems there. So what I'll do is I'll just go through their troops and then go through their commanders and then go through any other bits. Not going to go in great detail. I'll probably do a more detailed overview of them at some point, but not now. So firstly, we've got the Norscan Warhound. This can be recruited outside of forts. It's kind of a chaffy lance catchery unit. They're not particularly great, I believe, for patrolling. Oh, they're okay for patrolling. They're undisciplined, though. Something worth remembering. They've got lots of survivals. They're very good at moving around. And they're not terrible. They bite somewhat hard. They're pretty accurate. They're just a bit vulnerable to being repelled because their morale's not fantastic. But, they're all right. 8 gold, you get one of those. They're different from the Chaos versions of the Warhounds in that the Chaos ones can be kind of mutants and things. These ones cannot. I believe they have limited recruitment of 10 on them. I should probably have added that into the description. But anyway, you can only have 10 per turn. That's mostly to stop the AI from going wild building them because they don't cost very much. Next up, we have Thralls. These can also be recruited outside of your forts. Thralls are the bottom of the rung of Norscan society, but they're not slaves. They're people who are indebted instead, and they can earn their way out of it. So the way they do that is that they can end up finally being promoted, and upon promotion will become a bondsman, an axe-and-shield infantry who's roughly equivalent to a warrior, although I believe they'll keep their experience, so they'll actually be a bit better than a warrior, because they'll have gone through all these tough fights and things. But they need 40 experience to do that, and the bondsman, the thrall himself, is not particularly good. Doesn't have very good protection. He doesn't have a proper shield. He's just got a buckler. I might actually change that because we've got the heavy shield that's in use from our better unit. So I think I may change this buckler to be a proper shield in the next version. I think I've made them slightly too weak, the thralls. But anyway, they still have some good stuff going for them. They've got decent attack skill, they've got decent hit points, strength, morale, and so on. So they're okay. You know, they're better than most kind of militia type units. Um, they're just, you know, they're not as good as the other infantry you have. So you use these when you just want siege strength because they still siege just fine. 1.2 siege strength, 0.6 defense is basically the same as you get for the warrior. Yeah, very similar, and they are of course cheaper. So you could use them for patrolling and sieging and so on. The Thrall, if he does get promoted, you can see the promoted form in Norsca Troop Promotions. Here is the Bondsman. So the Bondsman, you can see you get better equipment. Still not amazing equipment, but you get an axe instead of a spear, you get a better helmet, you get the heavy shield that the Norscans use. This is just a better version of a normal shield, basically, slightly more protection and parry, I believe. And yeah, just slightly better stats and good morale. And by the time you get promoted, you'll have experience, of course, so they'll have better stats than this generally. So Bondsman can be pretty decent. They can't get promoted further after that, but you know that's as far as they can go. So Thrall turns to Bondman if he gets enough. Then you've got the Norscan Hunter, can also be recruited outside the forts. You can see you've got quite a few things that can go outside the forts here. Norscan Hunters, one nice thing about them is you get a supply bonus from them, which is nice. They basically don't take up supplies because of this. They have a spear, they have a harpoon bundle, and they have not very good armor and things, but their fighting stats are okay for a missile unit. They're best thought of as kind of a light infantry with javelins. That's kind of the role that they fill. But the harpoon bundle gives you 2 shots, so I believe that's the same as javelins. They give you 2, and decent damage, not very precise, but on a damage effect. So if you do manage to hit and damage with it, they have the harpooning effect, which can be negated by large or strong beings. So you can see that size 3 to 4 has a chance to negate, 5+ always negates it, and it just sticks a net on them, which is, you know, it's the entangling effect. It's the same kind of things like Ictids and stuff have. So it's not quite as strong as late age Atlantis's harpoons, but they're still pretty decent, and harpooning things is quite useful. You know, knocks their defense down massively, and they have to waste a turn breaking out of it. So I find that the hunters can be pretty useful for that. You know, dealing with nasty size 2 things that rely on good defense, like elf troops, for instance, and also against size 3 things sometimes. Then we've got the Norscan Warrior. This is the bulk of your forces, basically. I like the Norscan Warrior for 12 gold. He's pretty decent. It's got good stats. His protection's okay. It's not amazing, but he's pretty good against missile fire because of the heavy shield. If he does well and gets promoted, which he will at 30 experience, so a bit easier to get promoted than the Thrall, he will become a Huskarl with better equipment. The Huskarl has better equipment, but he doesn't actually have better stats other than morale, because you'll have to be experienced to get the Huskarl. You can't just recruit them. And the Huskarl looks like this. So here is the Huskarl. So you can see significantly better protection and a little bit better kind of morale and magic resistance. The Huskarl then, if he manages to get promoted, so you remember in order to get promoted he already has 30 experience, you don't lose that, but when you get to another 30 experience, you get to 60 in total, you then get promoted again, transforms into an identical unit with Homesick 100. As soon as that unit then ends a turn outside of its home province, it will transform into its next state and lose all experience. So basically, after a turn's delay, they can get promoted to a Bear-struck, Wolf-struck, Raven-struck, or perhaps become a Chosen. I'll go through the struck in a moment because there's a lot of things that can turn into them, but the basic mechanic there is that certain things, when they attract the attention of the gods in Norscan society, rather than being transformed into Chaos Spawn, or Forsaken, which is what happens if you're, you know, in the mod at least, a follower of Khorne, Slaanesh, or the forthcoming Nurgle and Tzeentch, you instead get turned maybe into a kind of a were-beast, like a Raven-struck, Bear-struck, or Wolf-struck, or you get, you know, turned into something else, like a Chosen, or kind of climbing up the hierarchy of the status in the eyes of Chaos. But this is the kind of Chaos Undivided and less gribbly version, more Norse version that I went for. So that's the Huskarl. The other warrior that you have, you know, basic infantry, is the Norscan Berserker. Norscan Berserkers do need a fort to require. These ones don't. You can get them outside. Better stats, good Berserk, Berserk 3, 2 axes, destroy stuff. They do cost 18 gold, but they absolutely annihilate things with those axes. So they're good, but bear in mind, low protection, not that many hit points, so they do die. For 18 gold, a bit vulnerable. You've also got the Norscan Rider, that's forts only as well. This is your only cavalry option, basically, and it is not a particularly good cavalry, but it's not bad either. Their protection is very low, so they shouldn't be taken as being heavy cavalry. You could at best call them medium cavalry. I would say that they are hard-hitting light cavalry. So they're quite capable because the light lance, you know, it's not front-loading things onto the charge. You do have that charge bonus, but it's not that strong. So you're kind of having to rely on them just going and chopping stuff up in melee, and they can do that against archers. But they are 25 gold each, so they're not super great for the price, I have to say. If you compared them with like the things used by TNG and so on, which are proper horse nations. The Norse just aren't that into cavalry, so their cavalry are at a bit of disadvantage. But you can throw them on the flanks, and they can flank things. They're pretty good for that. Then you've got a bunch of beasts. There's one more type of infantry I should talk about, the Norscan Reaver. This says he can be recruited in all forests. I think that this is bugged. It should say that he can be recruited in all coastal provinces. And I will check to make sure that's true, but I'm pretty certain that he can be recruited in all coastal provinces. So maybe I need to add something there, since the game is bugging and saying that he can be recruited in forests. Anyway, in coastal provinces is where he's supposed to be coming from. The Norscan Reaver is very hard hitting because he has the battle axe. 24 damage is extremely nice. His protection's pretty low. His stats in general are quite good, and he's not terribly expensive. The issue with them really is just they tend to die a bit for 18 gold. I would generally say that the Berserker fares better in combat, but if you need to hit super hard, single targets rather than just blending lots of stuff, battle axe is a good way to go with it off the Reaver. One of the nice things about the Reaver is that it is a way of getting to the chosen Wolfstruck, Ravenstruck, Bearstruck decision point much quicker, because you don't have to get warrior promoted to Huskarl and then promoted to potentially chosen. Instead, you could just get 40 experience with the Reaver. But bear in mind it is 40 experience, so a bit harder to get promoted. Yep, so that's the Reaver. They also come with Pillager 3. They're very good at pillaging if you can be bothered to use that. I've never been that into using pillage and stuff, but some people use it and it can be quite good. Moving on to our beastly infantry, our monstrous infantry, we have the Norscan Ogre. Very nice stats, tough, quite a lot of protection, hits incredibly hard. The big overchopper absolutely annihilates stuff. 29 damage, whew, just destroys things. You're not allowed that many of them. Your recruitment is limited to 4 per month, and they are quite expensive. And they do still die for 35 gold. 30 hit points and high protection means that they're tough, but their defense is not good, so they will get hit a lot. So against things barbarians, stuff like that, they will die pretty quick, and you have to worry about that. But they can repel some things. They don't get the length bonus because they're not size 4, they're only size 3. So they can't repel quite so well as something bigger with a two-handed sword could. Another beastly infantry, the Chaos Troll. You have more hit points, more expensive. Hit incredibly hard, 226 damage axes, very, very nasty. And then Troll Vomit, you have 2 ammo for this, I believe. It's not displaying it here. I think that you only have 2 ammo for the Troll Vomit. I'll have to check that. But yeah, it's area effect, armor piercing, and does acid damage, which damages armor and stuff. So that's actually really good against elite stuff, the Troll. He also has really good regeneration. 15% is very nice, so you can regenerate a decent amount of hit points every turn. The problem with Chaos Trolls is low protection, so you just have to bear that in mind. They're also undisciplined, and they're quite fast, so they'll run ahead of your troops. So you kind of have to put them at the back and let them catch up. If you can put some buffs on them to get their protection up, very nasty indeed. Recruitment is limited to 2 per month. And then we have a kind of monstrous centaur cavalry thing, the Dragon Ogre. This is the first of your sacreds. It is capital only sacred, and it has quite a lot going on for it. So one thing is it has storm power, which is nice if you've got a storm up, and you certainly can get storms up. You can forge storm staves and potentially cast storm, I believe. It's got storm immunity. This has no effect on the fact because it can't fly, it doesn't matter. But it also has very high shock resistance. So if you did give them flying, they could fly, if you cast mass flight or something. But shock resistance 20, they are basically shock proof. Being sacred and being very, very, very strong indeed, having these great stats, 55 hit points, incredibly tough. 20 protection, very, very tough. Of course, they have to be very expensive. So 160 gold is what you're paying for these. You can only get 1 per turn. That's not listed here, but maybe it should be. They are fast, so you can use them like centaurs. You just have to bear in mind you're never going to have very many of them because they are so limited. They do hit incredibly hard. The claw attacks are good, but the star of the show there is the Thunder Maul. It's a 2-handed massive maul thing. It is magic, and it hits for 35 odd damage, so you can legitimately kill enemy thugs, maybe even hurt super combatants and kill stuff like that with them. The fact that it's blunt is nice for killing like monoliths and things like that that are otherwise really difficult to deal with. And you get some shock damage thrown in on top. So if the enemy is relying on just having very high protection, things of that nature, then these guys can smash them with the Thundermaw. A thing to be aware of, though, if you're attacking someone with a fire shield, is these Glor attacks will hurt you because you'll just end up burning yourself up on them. Yeah, so that's the Dragon Ogre, the other one of your monster infantry, and then your other sacred is the Norscan Chosen. Can also only be recruited in the capital, so bear in mind you're going to have to split your holy points between these things. And I think all of your mages, yeah, all of your mages require holy points. But the Chosen, best way to think of the Chosen is very similar to the Chosen of Chaos. They're a bit cheaper. They're kind of like pocket-sized versions of them. They're a bit cheaper. They're a bit less strong, but they're still really good. They hit super hard with the battle axe. They have really high protection. It's not quite as high as the Chaos Warriors and Chaos Chosen in the Chaos factions because they don't have full Chaos armor, but they still have very good armor. And yeah, they can chop stuff up very nicely, and they're not that expensive for what they are. So I think pretty exciting unit to have. And that is, of course, what your Huskarls, Warrior turns to Huskarl, turns to Chosen potentially, and Reavers can also turn into Chosen as well. That's what you get at the end. But you do lose all your experience if they get turned into Chosen, so they're as good as the ones that you recruit, but no better. The other things that you could end up turning into, of course, are the Ravenstruck, Bearstruck, and Wolfstruck, and these are also sacred. They all have regeneration, they all have invulnerability, and then they have a variety of different things going for them. The Ravenstruck are stealthy and can fly, and don't hit as hard as the other two. The Bearstruck hit a lot harder and are tougher, and I think have more. Do they have animal or no? They don't. They have recuperation. I think they all have recuperation. Yeah, they all have recuperation, and none of them cost any upkeep in gold, which is very nice. But yeah, the Bearstruck is the kind of tank of the group. He's the toughest. His invulnerability is set at 13. The Ravenstruck's invulnerability also 13, so he's got about the same protection. I think they all have 13. Yep. But the Bearstruck does have more hit points, 42 against the Ravenstruck's 22, so significantly beefier. And then the Wolfstruck's kind of halfway between the two of them. He is also stealthy and has better stats, but it doesn't hit as hard as the Bear and isn't as tough. The Bear is significantly tougher than the others. So you can make use of those, and you want to, if you're looking at a Bless, you'd want to make sure that it works for all of them, I guess. The one other thing that you've got going on is the War Mammoth, and this icon, as it says down here, is not the full graphic. The full graphic is used outside the recruitment screen, and I can show you the full graphic, but I'm not sure if I put it in here. Maybe I did. Summons, nope. Troop promotions, no. No, I think it looks like I didn't put the full graphic in, but believe me, there is a full graphic of the mammoth, and I can go and show you in a second. Anyway, War Mammoths, super expensive. They come with fear. They are incredibly tough. 144 hit points. They're absolutely huge. They're like the biggest size 6 thing in the game, basically. They have pretty decent protection, but you would like to put that up even more. Like all tramplers, if they run away, they can trample your own stuff. They also have difficulty killing a huge number of stuff, because obviously, if you have tons of elephants that are like half the price, you'll be able to trample more things than just one mammoth. The point of the mammoth is that he can stay alive for longer, and he does come with some javelins that he can throw as well. So if you leave them unscripted, he can go off and throw his javelins and then do trampling when he runs out of his ammo. He has 2 ammo, and each time throws 4 javelins, so it's 8 javelins in total he'll be chucking out before he goes and tramples things. You can only have 1 per month. They're not sacred, of course. They can be used for various things, but at a certain point in the game, obviously you have to stop using them because they're magic resistance of 11 and a gold cost of 200. They just can't justify it when they can just get blasted by a soul slay or put to sleep or whatever else, or dealt with by people using animal lore. Is that all the troops? Yep, that's all of those. Okay, let's move to the commanders. We've got a scout, basic scout, except he can sail. You can recruit him everywhere, so that's exciting. You'll be able to scout everything very nicely. You have the Norscan chieftain. He is your basic leader. He knows how to fight, like most Warhammer military commanders. He has some degree of unsurroundability and elevated magic resistance, so pretty good at fighting. The fact that he has sailing max size 2, so he can't take around the monstrous things or the cavalry because his boat isn't big enough. Eventually he can get promoted. If he gets to 40 experience, he'll get promoted, and then he will either turn into a commander version of a Wolfstruck, Bearstruck, or Ravenstruck, which can be quite nice. Or turning into a Jarl, and the Jarls are pretty great. So you can also recruit Jarls, but only in your capital. Jarls are sacred, and they're best thought of as like commander versions of the Chosen. You do have to have high dominion in order to recruit Jarls in the first place. You can't start recruiting them straight away, and they do cost 2 recruitment points if you're recruiting them instead of getting them from having chieftains promoted. Their ships are bigger. max size 3, so they can carry the beasts. They can't carry dragon ogres, but they can carry trolls and normal ogres, or chaos ogres, and they can also carry cavalry, which is nice. So these can also be promoted. They require 50 experience, and when they're promoted, they turn into either King, Wolfstruck, Bearstruck, or Ravenstruck. The Wolfstruck, Ravenstruck, Bearstruck they turn into will be the kind of Jarl version rather than the Chieftain version, so I believe slightly better, or at least it has higher unsurroundability. So those are your military commanders. Since we're looking at those, before we look at the mages, let's look at the King, of course. The commanders can be promoted into a Jarl, so that's Chieftain to Jarl, Jarl to King, so here is the King. He is old. I think I need to take that off. I'm not sure exactly why that's turned up. It might be to do with his leadership value, so I might need to fix that in the next version. But yeah, he's showing up as old. Norscan kings have better equipment. They get their chaos plates. They're like upgraded versions of like chosen equipment. They get a magic weapon, the Frostwind Chariot. They come in an awesome bear chariot, which it's kind of a cool idea at least. And the war bear itself has 2 attacks, and those attacks are pretty decent, but it doesn't do any trampling. You can't train the bear to just pull the stuff through and trample everyone. Instead, the bear fights, and he fights off the back of the chariot, so it's still a hitty unit. When he gets to 60 experience, so quite a lot, bear in mind they lose their experience every time they get promoted. So if you go Chieftain to Jarl to King, you don't get turned into a were-monster at any of these points. When the King gets promoted, he could turn into either Wolfstruck, Bearstruck, or Ravenstruck King, or turn into a Demon Prince of Chaos Undivided. And the Demon Prince is what you really want, that's the much better one. But worth noting that the Norscan King, in addition to being sacred, has Holy too. He is a priest, so he can bless himself, he can bless other troops and so on. And I think Kings are pretty good. This is the main event, the Demon Prince. These things are extremely good. 2 water, 2 death, 2 bloods. They're quite capable of doing some interesting buffs to themselves. Both death and water have good buffs. Having the blood is nice. Having a unit that can fly with blood is very nice because he can fly over and do Hellbind Hearts or whatever other things like that. He can also bless himself. He's a priest level 2, just like the King. He comes with fear. He comes with invulnerability and extremely good equipment, including the Shield of the Accursed. He has this extremely good magical shield he uses, and the Frost-Ruined Mancutter, which has 2 attacks and is extremely powerful, so you're probably not going to be wanting to replace his hand slots. You can if you want to turn him into a real Premier Thug, because these are good but not, incredible. They don't have armor piercing or anything. But yeah, the Frost-Ruined Mancutter is a pretty nasty weapon. As you can see, generally amazing stats. Has resistances built in, including 10 cold, 10 poison, 5 fire, 5 shock, and he is Dominion immortal, although it will take him 6 months to come back. If he's killed in your Dominion, he will come back. He's also a combat caster, and I don't think there's anything else relevant. Oh, and he has recuperation, so you don't need to worry about afflictions on him. So Demon Prince is extremely desirable unit to have, and you can also summon them. I'll show you how much the summon costs in a moment. Mages-wise, we have Norscan Shaman. He's your kind of research horse. He's got 3 paths of 1. Yeah, he can't get anything to level 2. He does have sailing. Oh, I should point out that the King has... The Demon Prince doesn't have any sailing, but because he gives up on boats, he just flies. But the King does have sailing, and he can do size 4. So that's pretty good. There are a few things that are size 4. The Dragon Ogre is not one of them. It's size 5, so you're not going to be taking Dragon Ogres on boats anytime soon. They wouldn't want to anyway. They get seasick. So 1 step up from the Norscan Shaman, you get the Norscan Volva, which is kind of a witch. She is a fortune teller. She is an adept sacrificer and holy 2, so you can blood sacrifice as if they were holy 3. And she comes with 1 air, 1 nature, 1 blood, and then has a random of air, blood, death. So if you get the death one, you're 1 in everything. That's less exciting, but you can get up to air 2 and you can get up to blood 2, both of which are nice to have. So you're not that into nature so far, but having nice air access. She doesn't require a lab to recruit. He doesn't require a lab to recruit. The only one that requires a lab to recruit is your capital only, the Norscan Great Shaman. So Norscan Great Shaman comes with nice access to boats for sailing and things, which is good. He can take some ogres as bodyguards and sail around with those. He is a priest level 2. He comes with 2 water, 2 nature, 1 death, and then he can get fire, air, earth, death twice. So you can get them up to death 3. It's difficult, but you can get them up to death 3. That's a 1 in 16 chance. You can get them up to Earth 2, 1 in 16 chance. You can get them up to Air 2 as well, of course, but you're more likely to use the Volvers to get to Air 2, and you can get to Fire 2. So you do have quite a variety of things. Your difficulty comes in getting to that Nature 3 level, because you cannot get the Norscan Great Shaman to it or anyone else to it. So you may want to have a way of getting to Nature 3, possibly off your Pretender, because then you can cast Val Vapors and blah blah blah. I don't want to go into too much detail about that here. Anyway, what else do we have? We've got our promotions done. Oh yes, if you go and take an enemy capital, you will get the Sword of Chaos. So the Sword of Chaos will be available in the first enemy capital you take, and that is it for the entire game. But as long as you can go and, if they take it back, you can retake, you can still get the Sword of Chaos. The Sword of Chaos is a very expensive, but very, very good heavy cavalry sacred, who can absolutely smash stuff up. He's not, of course, restricted to your capital like your other sacreds are, and hits incredibly hard, has a magical weapon, has multiple attacks, and is incredibly high protection. He's basically the same as the Chosen Knights used by the other Chaos Powers, but has a little bit of extra stuff. So it says here he's got healing to his perfect form, that's recuperation from Sarnesh, poison resistance from Nurgle, poison resistance 10, which is nice against Foul Vapors and things like that, magic resistance by Khorne, so he's got magic resistance 15, very high, and vision beyond the material world by Tzeentch, so that is Spirit Sight, which is also extremely useful. So this is a really nice unit to have, and you want to go and knock over someone's capital and start building those. Anything else? We could look at how much the summon costs, but I've just got heroes to look at. So multi-heroes wise, you get Great Shamans and Kings turn up as multi-heroes. That's always nice. Getting a King is still pretty cool because he can turn into a Demon Prince. And your one luck independent hero, so event-based, every turn you've got some % chance of him turning up hero, is the Eternal Challenger, Wulfric the Wanderer. Wulfric the Wanderer is cool because he is very good at fighting. He can never become a Demon Prince or anything because he's kind of cursed to wander the earth and be a pain in the butt. He is a very good leader of men. Leadership 80 and Inspirational 1. He comes with extremely good sailing, max size 4. Also, he comes with this built-in magical item, Seafang, his demon-possessed, flying, teleporting longship, which basically is the same as the flying ship artifact. So you can take a bunch of guys and you can fly around with them on Seafang, which is very nice to have that relatively early from him. Very cool. He comes with a flame sword, just built in, but you may want to replace those things. He's got full slots otherwise. And he's got very good protection, hit points, etc. So very nice, just as a kind of a thug and leader. But I think for the most part, his value is in having that leader that can fly your troops around. So I think that is everything, except I want to show you the welcome message and how much this one summon costs. So let's just go into the game. I can also recruit a War Mammoth, so I can show you what those are like. But let's go and look at your summon. It is in Blood Magic. This is the only summon you have at the moment. It's at level 6, so not too high research. It's 111 Blood Slave, and you get a Demon Prince of Chaos Undivided, which is cut off there, but that's a shame. I might have to change that to be Contact Demon Prince of Chaos, or Demon Prince of Chaos Undivided, not sure, but I should fix that since it's been truncated. So that's your one summon that you've got at the moment. You may get some in the future. I was going to add the summons the different Chaos Powers get, and you can kind of summon those up, but less good. This is your welcome message, telling you about the Path of the Warrior, which is troop promotions, Path of the Champion, which is commander promotions, and your longships. So I'll just explain these. Any coastal land province you control will spawn a Norscan longship's site. While you control the province, the site will silently give you 10 to 30 gold a turn, so it won't tell you you're doing that, and it won't be in your income, but you will be getting 10 to 30 gold a turn from each of those. If you don't control the province, it will send you 15 to 45 gold, so you get more gold if you don't control it. So what you want to do is raid, get control of it, and then lose control of it to the enemy. So you get more gold that way, and 1d6 blood slaves. However, it will also generate unrest, and eventually, if they can keep the unrest down, it'll eventually get removed. So it will disappear eventually, but it's a big benefit to just raiding people by attacking them and running away. At high unrest, Reavers may also attempt to retake the province for you. That's an event that can happen. You also have Archaon's Favour. The first time you fully control an enemy capital would have Dominion there. You get the site, which gives you the Swords of Chaos. So that's just telling you how that works. And then, of course, you get your Dominion moving to turn 3 regardless of scales. So we'll end on a high note. I will just end this turn and we will see what the Mammoth looks like. So you can see this is his recruitment thing, just shows you his face. When you actually recruit one, it looks like this. Oh, look at that big boy. So we see what he looks like in a battle, just for fun. I will show you what the Mammoth looks like in a battle. I'll just give him to Hona, and Hona will attack these guys, and we'll just see what this Mammoth does. So you can see he is a whopper on the battle screen. Absolutely huge, much bigger than size 6 really should be, but that's life. And then here's the enemy. So he's going to run up and throw some javelins, presumably. Out go the javelins. He manages to kill one, I think. Here comes some harpoons. Is he going to do another attack? I think he's got another set of javelins. Yep, kills another one with javelins. So he starts getting hit, but he is now going to start trampling and using his fear aura, of course. Off he goes, stomping some boys. But you can see he's not as good at trampling as like a ton of elephants would be. The main thing is there's that fear as well. So he did okay trampling, but he took some damage, and even though he's got a bit of affliction resistance, this affliction resistance 1 means he is half as likely to get afflictions. He did still get a limp, which is pretty bad for a mouth. So you can see that you have to be careful the way you're using them. Obviously, buffing them is very good. Moss body is a great thing to throw on them. Okay, that's everything for Norsca. I will make a more detailed video about them at some point, but I hope that that whets your appetite for giving the nation a go. I will see you next video. Bye for now.